Because Chicago has lost 200,000 residents over the last 10 years. 178,000 of those residents were black. 80% of that 178,000 were former public housing residents, right? So they've been dispersed all throughout the state, as far north as Duluth, Minnesota, or south of St. Louis. I think one of the things that we've seen that actually works best in that process is first not to criminalize the new population, right? Because that's the thing, right? Because the teachers get paranoid, and everybody's running, and somebody that rip their shirt off and run out in the street, and you gotta hit by a car because they don't know, because these kids are coming from the city. That's what happens. I get a call probably every month about, Stovall, we have a situation with the city kids. What do you mean, right? But what would it mean to say, what would it mean to welcome families? Amen. Right? So, and again, I appreciate a small community like DeKalb, because a principal can really walk the street, right, and say, okay, where are folks living? Where are my students coming from? Go right to the spot. Not the community walk.
Come on, man.
Because the thing is, because the community walk becomes the zoo walk. Right? It's like, look at them, let's see how certain people live. And then you take all, and everybody's looking, and then the young folks on the block like, who are these white people? And then it's like, you brought them here for what? Right? And this thing around having conversations in spaces where folks commune, right? And to be humble in the conversation. Hey, I'm new. I understand that folks this might be their first time here. I want to introduce you to the city. Here's some things that are happening. And then locate the teachers in that building who know what they're doing, and historically shown that they have been more amenable to new students. And then have those sessions throughout the school year. So it's not just a one-off, welcome back, and then a little sign at the bottom. Y'all for the projects too, right? Because we do stuff like that, right? Yes. But I think it's important to be consistent in that welcome. Right? So in that consistency, now you're able to engage folks and find out what the issues and concerns are. Because one of the most crucial things I've ever seen from a teacher is a conversation that he had with a parent. He said, your son or daughter, you know your son or daughter better than I will ever know. And I need your help. Right? You tell me what's best, how they interact, what are the ways you think they learn the best, and now you can get that conversation moving. It changes instruction, right? And these things we think to be rocket science or locked in some assessment really comes out in the conversation around what it is that we're doing. Now, what we can do is support that practice of engaging young folks and families in that way. But I think that's been, and actually there's a national example. Some of you all probably heard of this place. There's a city called Uniontown, New Jersey, and there's a principal in white male, not from the area, 10 years, the district goes from 90% white to 70% Latino. His Latino students have the highest performance and growth in the history of Union City. What does he do? He says, look, I gotta go out, I gotta talk to families, what are the issues and concerns, and with the issues and concerns, I now shape how my schools are run based on those issues and concerns. So every school now has an English language learning center. Every school has a parent committee. Every school has a parent committee with budgetary discretional power. Yes. Right? So this thing around, he changed up. He said, look, what am I doing? These are families with real needs. Here's some things that we can do and not spend a bunch of money, but just shift how we actually use them currently, right? So this thing, so he changed up, and you could look it up again. It's Union City, New Jersey. And he was very intentional about that, right? But in terms of looking at what it means, and then actually there's some local principals. There's a guy who I work with who's a principal at Cameron Elementary in the city, and he's from the neighborhood, born and raised, and is now a principal. He's a young guy. His thing was, look, I graduated from here. My thing is, it can't be the same from when I graduated. And that's the work that happens. So I think those things become important in terms of pushing a different type of practice in terms of schools. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, brother. I appreciate your words. Stand up. I appreciate your words. This is another time I get a chance to hear you speak, and I really appreciate it. But I had a question on what your thoughts were about testing. You said a lot of, but more so about teacher-centered tests. One thing around the state of Illinois, myself as a Latino male, we got 5% Latino teachers in the state of Illinois. There's a lot more Latino faces in the state of Illinois than 5%. And one of the things is this TAP test. Myself, I can get as best grades as one, GPA, I graduated, whatever, still can't pass the basic skills TAP test. What's going on?
Here's the thing.
And then also your thoughts on too, with La Casita just closing down over in
Two
Whitty.
particular questions. So as a Latino male in the state of Illinois, there are only 5% of the teachers in the state of Illinois are Latino males. That's a very different number from the number of Latinos in schools in Illinois, right? Also, what we see now is this TAP test again. Look at how the testing battery is shaped, right? And if we got psychometricians in the building, and I appreciate psychometricians so much because they always say, look, these tests largely are fraudulent because they're not telling us anything. They're only telling us, just like with little ones, how well a young person takes a test at a particular day and time. So that's all that we really know. Right? According to the psychometricians who write the things, right? So this thing around, and they try to make an adjustment with it. And that adjustment hasn't garnered the results that we need. Now, there are a couple of things you can do on the front end. One is explicitly recruit Latino males into the teaching force, right? To be explicit about that. And we got the numbers to say, look, I'm recruiting them because they have been historically excluded, right? And I'm trying to change the paradigm. And then the second question was about, I don't know if some of y'all may have seen this. There's a long-standing community center known as La Casita in the the playground of Whittier Elementary in Pilsen. Now, when we talk about systems, the alderman is a guy named Danny Solis. Solis promised the community that they would revisit developing La Casita. Now, listen to this, right? And because I think there's another part that got mixed. The principal of Whittier got fired this semester. So she was removed, and she was also kind of holding the fort to make sure that La Casita would be revisited. Okay. So they fire her. Now there's nobody to defend it internally. Then they bring bulldozers at 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday and mow it.
With the police?
Right? Now, there's precedent for that in Chicago. Some of y'all may remember Biggs Field, right? They just came with bulldozers, middle of the night, and people's planes were still on the runway, right? And the city ended up paying those folks out, right? Because they had to transport their planes, right? It's like we don't need it, bump it, kill it, eminent domain. Now here's a situation, and La Casita is a building that was, so the Park District used to have partnerships with CPS. La Casita is one of the only buildings left from that era. It had adult education, resources for families who may have just come to Chicago, English classes, and a health clinic. All the things that we need in schools. A local community member said, look, I will rebuild La Casita at cost. I won't charge you anything. The only thing I'm going to do is pay the folks who built it. Issues the plan to CPS. CPS says no. Why? Because they already sold the lot to a neighboring Catholic school to put a soccer field on. Right? So now we have community development, community schooling, what we say we need, but being destroyed because that particular population has been deemed vulnerable and disposable. I can't say it any other way. Right? And that particular relationship is now indicative of what we're seeing in cities across the country. And I think that community resistance becomes critically important because now, if we're training teachers, now those teachers are clear as to how to support folks when this is happening. Absolutely. Right? So this thing around looking at that particular process, and some people look at me and say, Stovall, are you just creating activists for the purpose of activism? Like, man, look, this is the human condition. This is happening to people. This isn't happenstance. I mean, I'm not speaking about this figuratively, right? And are we just gonna let it ride? Or are we going to do something based on what we know, right? Because if I don't do anything, I'm complicit, right? And I'm part of that process. And then I'll start to rationalize what's being done to folks, right? So this thing around looking at that in a different way, but I think that frame really becomes important because La Casita is indicative of what's been happening across the country, right? And even the school that I was at, so I was telling folks earlier this morning, 2 days before the first day of school last year, our principal got fired. Dumped. Two security guards came into the room with 238s, said, you pack up your bags. All right? Now, our principal was kind of a rider. She said, Stovall, I'm going to tell you the truth. I looked at him, and I just wanted to do like this. Do the deed. She was like, I want to send another baby to jail. Right? These are 2 young dudes. Right? But to the credit of the community, and this is the only instance I know about this, it's probably happened before, but based on the community's research and understanding, the principal got rehired. 9 weeks in. But again, it was only because of their commitment to get her rehired and actually to demonstrate what actually was happening in the schoolhouse and how that was the choice of the community, how to defend her. Now, look at how CPS operates. She gets rehired on the 9th week. On the 12th week, we get this little placard congratulating us for the highest gains in the network. I mean, come on, man. I'm just saying to myself, are you serious? Right? And she just looked at it and said, Stovall, that is what we can just call the irony of life. Right? But this type of thing, but again, community support as being critical in that process. And teachers can support that because 2 of our founding teachers got fired with the principal. Right? And they brought her back, and actually by way of the union strike, those teachers were brought back, and it was found that they were fired unsummarily, right? So we see this stuff happen all the time. But what we're talking about is galvanizing support to make sure that we know this when this stuff comes, that we're well versed and prepared. Yeah? Mm-hmm. What other questions? Let me check in. Is this stuff making sense? Because I know a lot of times, folks like, don't know what you're talking about, right? Well, again, if there are other questions as they come forward, please feel free to shoot me an email. Again, I'm really concerned about how we build with others understanding what this condition is. Yeah? Thank y'all again.